template to circulate it to our members and all interested people to be representative of the citizens movement. After that, we're going to go to a process where we do the vetting process to try and make sure that people are checked in terms of their credentials, in terms of who they are. You know that
the
there
legal
are
issues,
legal issues, people with criminal records and so forth. That makes it legally impossible for people to be our representative. From there, we're going to return the people who have been qualified based on the nominations coming from the people for a validation process where people also, you know that one of the major issues in our politics that is reflective of the people that we see in parliament now and in local authorities and different offices is the issue in and around capacity. You've got members that go to parliament, you've got councillors that go to parliament, but some of them might be content free. And these are some of the issues that we want our people to know. Because if I say I'm interested to be a member of parliament, the people in the community must be given an opportunity in what we call citizens caucuses to ask questions to our people who wish to represent the party to say,
I want to look at this issue of citizens in the caucuses or in the wards. I mean, is this people who are card-carrying members of Triple C will sit and decide? Is it just the communities? It's open to everyone in the community, and then they can decide? Because I would see that one of the dangers could be that criteria could possibly open up divisions at all different levels, at ward level or even at higher levels across the country. What would you say to that?
Thank you. That's an important question. Of course, you know that internal processes to choose people because it's contestation of positions. People are bound to disagree. People are bound to have all these kind of issues coming in and out because of positions that will be up for grabs. But what we have done is to set the parameters. How do we have people come to our caucus? What we have been collecting, you know that last year we started a program called Mugwazo. The intention and objective of that program was to capture data of citizens in the street, what we call street point person and street register. So it's not just the people who are said to be within the rank and file, but these are people who belong and subscribe to our values. So they'll be constituting the citizen caucus.
All right, so I will come back and ask you more questions about that, but I'd like to bring in Tapiwa. Tapiwa, MDCT, of course, you have certain criteria. You obviously want to field candidates countrywide in all 10 provinces for all positions, whether it be at council level, provincial level, PRC, and even parliamentary. What criteria are you using to select those candidates so that it's democratic and it's the people's will, if I can call it that?
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, viewers. For my party, MDCT, the good thing is that we've been contesting elections since 2000. So we are not reinventing the wheel. We have got a way and a criteria which we use to select our candidates. Right, we'll start at ward level. We have got established structures in all the wards in the country. So when it comes to the choice of a councillor or a ward representative, we invoke the constitution by way of the structures at the ward level. They'll have to raise their CVs, submit to the district. The district will send that.
Card-carrying members.
Yes, card-carrying members.
Verified card-carrying members.
Yes, verified members. We were subject to all the vettings, security vettings, the legal requirements. The CVs go from ward, they go to the district. Then the CVs from the district, they go to the province, screening. Then they go to the National Elections Directorate, which is the apex body at party headquarters.
And that's comprised of who? People from your leadership?
From leadership in various party organs, organizing department, elections department, chairman's department, and so on. So it represents women, youth, and everybody. That's the elections directorate. So they will sit then to consider all the CVs that's submitted, look at all the criteria that are required.
Is one of them ideology?
Sorry?
Is one of them ideology of MDCT? Is that important how they think?
It's important.
What they call it, ideology.
Yes,
it's important. Because obviously you want candidates that vote for you.
Are you ideologically sound?
Okay, so that's all part of the criteria.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And then those CVs are sent back to the ward level after choosing.
So you believe this is people representative?
Yes.
And will you be able to nominate candidates for all positions?
We are going to field in all the constituencies, in all the wards.
And I'm sure that's a given as well for
in all the constituencies, right. So once that is done, the CVs are sent back to their provinces, then back to the district, then to the wards, then a suitable candidate is elected, and then primaries take place. And our principle is secret ballot.
Okay.
By the membership.
But you also have dispute resolution policies to make sure that there's no divisions or people get into internal fights or whatever.
So we have got that process where we use secret ballot. And our policy is that this year we are going to field 50% of our candidates will be females.
Okay.
So we are gender sensitive. We are going to make sure that purposefully we're fielded 50%.
Now, before I come to Maddock, maybe I can ask you both. Do you have criteria about how long a person should be standing in your party before they can be nominated? What is your...
At various levels. If you are going to contest in the ward as a councillor, you must be 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
Old, 5 years old in the party.
Okay.
In parliament, you have to be at least 10 years old in the party.
Gift, do you have? I'll come to you, Maddock. Any criteria like that?
It's not a legal prerequisite, but we think that politically people know the people that have worked with the people, because remember that we emphasize that we need people that have been working with the people. So naturally, people have to look your history in terms of how long
have to have been
and
around
what you've
for
been
a while.
working with them. So naturally, the issues of fear come, but it's not an issue of disqualification if you have not been.
So let me just finish.
Yes, please. Sorry. Yes, please. Stop here. Yes, please. If you could just.
We don't impose candidates.
Okay.
Yeah, we will follow a democratic process where the candidate comes from the people, from the structures at ward, district, and provincial level, and then we'll be able
even if your leadership doesn't like them, you don't impose.
Even if you don't have to like them, we don't have to like them. That's the criteria we are going to use to select our candidates. And we think that by end of April, we should have all the candidates in place. We have already kickstarted the motion,
So end of April, and you'll be done 5th of April, probably a week or so after that.
2 weeks.
2 weeks after that.
Yeah.
Maddock, I want to come to you now. In Zimbabwe's last election in 2018, I understand my research, the NCA did not have enough candidates to contest all elections, be it at council parliamentary level. I suppose why, is my first question. And then, of course, it moves to my second question of picking candidates now, and will you now be contesting, or do you believe you'll be able to contest in all elections that are up for grabs in the next, 4, 5, 6 months when the elections are announced?
Yeah, okay. I think your question in terms of the last general election, the NCA managed to field about 80 candidates for parliamentary. So you see what happened today is that you would know that it was our first general election. As a new political party, we just used to be a civic society organization. So now probably what people say when they say that you need to have experience in politics is exactly what affected us. We had all the 210 candidates. But logistically, there was a problem in terms of nomination. You would know that if you go to ZEC, they will tell you that the number of NCA had more number of candidates disqualified in terms of not meeting
the lay down criteria when you register.
The minimum benchmarks needed. Sometimes, because you know that also it was the NCA that was crying foul more in terms of non-availability of the voters' roll. Okay. Because now what was happening there is that you would reach its nomination court, then you realize that one of the candidates there, the nominators there are not even in their voters'
on the voters' roll, so therefore they can't even nominate them.
They can't even nominate, but now you see...
So what's changed now? So now you're saying you're politically more mature. Is this
what you've changed actually, you know that NCA is no longer just any other political party. You will not talk about political parties without mentioning the NCA in terms of even... what we stand for and what we have done to influence even policy making and a lot of things after the 2018.
So now, let's talk now 2023. Selection criteria?
In 2023, our selection criteria is that we'll get our candidates for the all 210 constituencies.
You are going to field.
We're going to field.
This is how many? I mean, it's quite a lot. It's 210, and then if you talk councils and wards, I mean, it's quite a lot. I think I did 2,000 something, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we will do that. And so what we've been doing is that we've been doing our structures, and our structures we are doing them at ward level. So those people at ward level who are NCA card-carrying members are the ones who are going to be eligible to be candidates. they're also the ones who are going to constitute the electoral college to choose the candidates. And we don't have we're not going to say that in terms of the requirements, besides the legal requirements that are enshrined in the Constitution of Zimbabwe,
Right.
in other electoral laws of Zimbabwe,
How-
we will not have any other probably different from the...
Now, you said you're now a mature political party. Do you have any numbers in terms of supporters, card-carrying members, if I can call it that, for the NCA countrywide? Do you have that kind of numbers?
Yeah. We've been...
Because if you talk about card-carrying, you need to know exactly who these people are.
We've been contesting in by-elections, and you would know that in those by-elections, the NCA was not getting zero. We were actually getting good numbers, and we now have people who are in the structures as NCA leaders, that if you walk into any ward, you ask who is the NCA chairperson in this ward, you get to know those people, and those are the people who are going to be...
one of the things, and of course it's the topic of our discussion tonight, is the criticism that's been leveled against all political parties going backwards. I'll start with you, and I'll ask each of my guests the same question. Going back, whereby candidates have been imposed. Someone says this person must stand there unopposed, you have to vote for him, etc., etc. Fine, they may satisfy the criteria, they live in the area and so forth, but the idea being that the party, and I think it doesn't just happen in Zimbabwe, I think there's cases I've noticed also happening overseas where parties have imposed candidates, where they want that person to stand because they need that person in government. How can you assure Zimbabweans that the people that you select, and I ask this the same question to all of you, the people that are selected to represent your party will be picked freely by the people, it will be their choice, and effectively leadership will have no discussion about who they are, whether they'll stand for elections come 2023, the elections?
Yeah, okay, to start with, the NCA, before we get into any primary elections, we don't have any candidates who have been preferred by the top leadership, for example. You will know that I'm the Secretary General. Then,
so even you're not preferred?
You see, even myself, I would want to stand as a candidate in Bikita West.
Right.
That is my constituency. So it's subject that I'm actually going to succeed in the primary elections. So everyone else is going to be subjected to primary elections, and there's not anyone who is going to be selected as a special person to say that they are not going to go through any primary elections.
I want to ask the people, I understand what Madoko is saying here, but let's say you want to stand in your constituency and suddenly all leadership comes to support you. You're sending a message to your supporters that, by the way, we like this guy, vote for him. I mean, is that a way of also influencing the electorate to appoint you as a candidate?
Fortunately, we don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I too will be subjected to the same criteria and processes like anybody who is eligible. So we will not refuse any CV. So anyone who thinks he wants to compete or stand for a ward or constituents will forward their CV.
Okay.
And then we subject that to a democratic internal electoral process.
Whatever the result is, you'll
Whatever
stick with
the
that.
result is, the person chosen by the people is the one who emerges as a candidate.
Gift, let me, similar question, of course, to you. And how do you ensure that, the electorate doesn't think, oh, by the way, this is who the party wants us to vote for, and that they really do pick a representative that they believe, actually supports them and will carry their message? Because they don't just support the party, they also support the people who are electing them into power.
I think very much that's an important question, and we have emphasized this, and I'll take this opportunity again to re-emphasize the point that we have said ours is a citizen-led process, because there can't be CCC without the citizens. So we cannot have any decision, particularly of this great national importance, being made by those at the top. We have made it very clear as a non-negotiable position, because we have learned from the past that one of the greatest challenges that we see in electoral seasons are people being deposited upon the people for various reasons. So what we have said, we have even advised some of our people and those who intend to be the representative of CCC that if you want to be a member of parliament or a councillor and even a presidential candidate, it must be the collective decision of the people. That's why you see our nomination form as the beginning and foundational basis. And we've said that no one, and our people must be able to know that no one should come to communities and say, I relate to so-and-so, or I've worked with so-and-so, or I'm better than so-and-so. Let the people make the decision based on the work that we have done.
But that also implies then that winners are winners, losers are losers, and people must accept winning and people must accept losing. I mean, that's the fundamental core of how your criteria selection.
That's
Because 70% may vote for Andy, 30% may not, but those 30% must accept that Andy won.
That's the beauty of democracy, Andy. When you go to a process, and one of the most important things is to accept defeat, because in that way you are able to show that you are loyal to the cause and that you are genuine. Because I cannot come in and say I want to contest you, and when you emerge victorious, I then say I'm not happy. It's important though that you are able to differentiate between people who have grievances and someone who doesn't agree because they've lost the process, right? And that's why we have set an independent panel to conduct the process at the first basis. Number two, to have a panel of legal experts to be the arbiter, to be able to adjudicate issues where I feel that I've been mistreated, or there are challenges. I should be able to have a platform for redress. So you see that from the process we do our validation to the process where we release our final candidate list, the work that we put in between is for the issues of redress, what we call administrative justice, so that I'm able to say these are the issues that I feel were not done properly, and where you intend to redo the process, let it be done. Let the template be followed to the letter and the spirit of it, so that anyone who's not happy can be able to seek redress.
I want to go, not on a tangent, but just to follow through with your thought. That would also imply then that CCC, whatever it is, whether it be in internal politics or it be against other parties, they win, you lose, and you accept it.
That is what must happen. The reason why we've emphasized on a citizen-centric process is for that our people must be able to learn, because one of the scourge of electoral challenges in this country is that when we do elections which are not free and fair, it is on that basis that people then dispute the electoral outcome.
This is where violence rears its ugly head, etc.
That's why we said to cure that, let the process be free and fair, so that those who become part and parcel of the consensus process can be able to be satisfied and say, look, I have been on this process. Unfortunately, the people say there should be someone else. And it is on that basis that the party and the movement would consider such people for deployment in other
but that would also imply then that if you felt that elections were held freely and fairly and an opposition party won or you lost, you would accept the result. That's the logical conclusion of what you're saying. If, of course, as you said, it's proven to be free and fair.
You are very correct, and we have said when we launched our document, the pre-election pact on reforms, we said we are prepared as a party to be bound in this conversation that if we are able to implement these minimum reforms, right? Okay. So that we are satisfied about the process, so that when we get into the election in 2023, with these conditions being met, or any other that has been raised by other stakeholders, not just us as CCC, but different players, so that we are able to cure this disease of vicious cycles of disputed elections.
This is exactly the one. Disputed elections, violence in elections is something that we've discussed here on The Chase. And of course, all political parties have said they don't want violence, they'll campaign against violence. And in fact, we do not want to see violence. We want a peaceful election in 2023. You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. Our discussion, 2023 elections. Are parties selecting people's representative? It's time for us to take a breather. Don't go away. The Chase. We'll be right back.
I feel like I've got a word for somebody. Life, just as we all know it, is full of emotions. Hakuna kana game one, where in 90 minutes you can be able to fully express yourself, like football.
Chance, and it's a goal! Nice! Oh, it was a speckside.
If our favorite player scores, hi, boy, jubilation! But if they miss, if the referee makes a very bad decision, we are so disheartened. If our team loses, I could go on and on and on and on. But simply put, football is 90 minutes of pure emotion.
Let your emotions run wild with the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League. Bora Redu, live on ZTN Prime.
Welcome to Chew On, the show that links people, food and culture whilst giving you a diverse culinary experience.
Pure ingredients, wholesome, vibrant and earthy dishes. When you get all the elements together, it all sings. That's what Zimbabwean food is all about. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chew On.
Buckle up and prepare to be taken on a riveting journey, unlocking the very best of Zimbabwe. Architecture and interior design, art and entertainment, people, products, produce, the great outdoors, hidden gems, and so much more. Experience the good life from the comfort of your home. Only on C'est La Vie. Mondays at 6:30 p.m. on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294.
Welcome back. This is The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. I'm Andy Hodges. Our discussion tonight, 2023 elections. Are parties selecting people's representatives? Tapiwa, I now want to turn to policy. I want to start with you, and I will ask everybody the similar question. If your party, the MUCT, is elected into power in 2023, what will be your priority areas in your first 100 days?
Thank you, Andy. Well, we'll hit the ground running in our first 100 days. The first critical area, policy area we are going to address is the question of the energy crisis. Everyone is complaining about power and so on. Our focus is to switch towards green energy.
I'm going to ask you specifically. Just give me your platform, then I'll get into the green energy.
No, but that's
power.
a policy,
To
solve the energy crisis.
Energy, right? I'll ask you later
because
how.
we are into fossils.
Okay, right. So green
energy is key. Growth in macroeconomic stability is key. This country needs to grow. This country needs to be macroeconomically stable. But the elephant in the living room is our currency. Current stability is key. Our dollar has no value. So before doing anything, we have to introduce the United States dollar. We have to re-dollarize so that we can launch our stability on a stable macroeconomic platform.
You want off with the Zim dollar,
we want US dollar, because that has worked before. We are not reinventing the wheel, that has worked before. The third thing, we want to deal with the parastatals. They are drained to the fiscus. Your national railways, your GMB, and so on. So we need to kickstart a serious commercialization project to make sure that these parastatals can survive on their own, in their own right. They don't continue to drain money from this fiscus.
Stand alone.
Yes.
SOEs.
Yes, we are also going to focus on the debt crisis. Our debt level is $17 billion. Yeah. And our approach is that let's go the HIPIC route, tell the creditor nations that we can't pay, we are poor, therefore we have debt relief. The current problem with the government is that they pretend that they are rich, so they don't want to be called poor countries. But we will admit that we are poor, we need debt relief. And then a scheduled repayment of our debts.
I can see we're going to have an interesting conversation about your manifesto when it comes out, aren't we? Particularly your economic one.
Then most importantly, our health sector is in a state of crisis. Okay. Our health sector is in a state of crisis. We have to start afresh in terms of medical supplies, in terms of equipment, in terms of manpower or human resources. We are losing critical mass to the UK and other countries. So we have to pay good salaries in the health sector. and make sure that our personnel is covered. The civil servants, they've been suffering. If we dollarize, they should be able to get hard currency, real income, address their pensions. Pensioners are in trouble. We have to address their pensions, increase their pensions. Our education system has to be revamped so that it is skills-based. Right? It is industrially oriented.
That's a lot in 100 days, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. But it will be business and business through and through.
Okay, all right.
We are going to restore the country, the normal relations with the international community, because that's very important. We are not an island, so we are going to open the economy and deal with SADC, regional integration through SADC, continental integration through the AU, and international integration. The country is to start trading on the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are not doing that as yet. Why are we not trading? Senegal is trading, South Africa has started trading, Ghana has started trading, Kenya has started trading. We must be there on the international stage in terms of regional integration.
I'm going to jump in. I don't think there's a lot that you want to talk about, but I will be asking you specifically.
It will be policy or a policy-oriented government, not what air. Talk is cheap, but we have to come up with practical policy measures to turn around this economy.
Okay, this is the 100-day plan. Well, we will get into some of it in a bit more detail just now. Maddock, NCA, 100 days, the 100-day agenda. It's a number that people pick. Well, it's an important number. It kind of shows the direction of your government if you get into power as NCA. So give us your 100-day plan, and I'm sure you have one.
Yeah, okay. We as an opposition political party would know that we are premised, our principles are premised on constitutionalism. So in our first 100 days in power, what we'll do is that we'll put up a framework to ensure that Zimbabweans get another opportunity to write a constitution that is democratic. The current constitution that is there, which was written during the inclusive government, by ZANU-PF and MDC. It's a very undemocratic constitution.
But I thought that the NCA was, didn't you support that 23rd?
No, the NCA was on a record against that constitution. It's a very undemocratic.
The current constitution that we have, that most parties say is very democratic. You're saying it's undemocratic.
It's quite very undemocratic.
Okay, all right, so you're going to rewrite the constitution.
Yes, we believe that, no, we're not going to rewrite. We're going to give Zimbabweans a genuine opportunity to write a constitution. The time when they were given that opportunity, it was more of a political part driven. So it was they were just listening to what the political leaders of that time were saying.
But you'll have no direction for the people in terms of what you would like to see in that constitution, because you're the party
in
power.
We are saying that a democratic constitution will not give too much power to the president like the current constitution. Okay. A democratic constitution also will not allow perennial leaders, for example, that you know that as we're talking about elections, you know that half of the parliamentarians who are seated now in parliament have not contributed anything in parliament. But these are the same people who will be jostling for political positions. Some of them, they've been MPs since 1980, some since 1990, some since 2000. So as NCA, obviously, that is the new thing that we're bringing, that obviously our candidates themselves, they are new in terms of they've never been parliamentarians.
All right, okay,
before.
so let me get this straight. So first 100 days, one of the main things you'll do is you'll open it up to the people to come up with a new constitution.
We're going to put a framework for a new constitution, but it's not just about a new constitution, but we're also going to make sure that we come up with laws that will get rid of situations like, let's say, for example, the highest levels of corruption that we are witnessing. For example, we believe that if we become government, we ensure that the laws will make sure that if you are involved in corruption, then obviously you will be punished. Currently, the problem that we have currently.
Let me just understand this. So your platform would be really around civic issues, corruption, constitutionalism, rule of law. This is the type of thing that you're talking about in terms of what you're doing.
I was going to get to it, but I just wanted to finish the point that I was before you interjected. The issue of corruption.
Yes.
We feel that the current government, the ZANU-PF government, is not suitable. It's not the one that can fight corruption, for example. because they are actually the face of corruption in Zimbabwe. So the advantage that we have if Zimbabweans vote for NCA to become government.
Yeah. Well, look, it's unfortunate that Tafadzwa Mugwadi was unable to make it, or he said he would come, but unfortunately was tied up, and he's not here to defend himself. But I wish he was, because it would be interesting to hear again what their 100 days would do. But anyway, please continue.
Yeah, okay, I was saying that the
difference
that will be there is that obviously an NCA government will not be corrupt like the current government.
Okay.
Then obviously we're also saying that as NCA, we are a social democratic party. What that basically means is that in all our policies, we say we'll be biased towards the poor person. Okay. What is the average poor person experiencing? So our educational policy, for example, it will take into consideration that a poor person must also be able to send their kids to school, for example. Okay. A poor person should be able to get treatment if they get ill. If they must be able to go to hospital and get free medical attention, for example.
Okay. Right.
We are saying that a poor person must also eat, for example. So just probably for the sake of time, you will know that when our manifesto eventually comes, the NCA manifesto, it's a session. It will
definitely, because I think there's definitely going to be a chase where we are going to look. Hopefully, we'll invite. Well, you will all be invited back, of course, and we'll look at your economic manifesto and look at different areas of your manifestos and discuss them in depth. I think here we're just really trying to get a broader policy framework from you, and we'll just touch on a few issues this evening. Gift. Triple C, 100 days, first 100 days. I mean, it's a benchmark. It isn't the be all and end all, but it is an important step when anyone ever wins power or even reclaims power.
No, thank you, Andy. That's a very important question on policy. We are in the process of finishing our document called the New Zimbabwe Blueprint, which we are going to be unveiling once our processes are on. But I'll just give hints in terms of what is going to happen in the first 100 days without preempting so much of what is in our policy blueprint. But one of the most important things is the restoration of the social contract, because the trust deficit in our country is the reason why we are, particularly in terms of economic performance. Once we do that, we must be able to say in the first 100 days, our focus is going to be macroeconomic stability. Obviously, issues of currency, issues of the role of the RBZ, issues around how we resolve now, launching our program into the macroeconomic framework, because debt is going to be a big issue. And what we think must happen uniquely is that we must be able to have a debt audit as the first important step when we get into government, so that we are able to account. With the current statistics that we have is saying we've got above what is constitutionally supposed to happen in terms of our debt, domestic and external debt, ballooning at almost 17 billion. But we must be able to have a debt audit to say when was this money borrowed by who, for what, so that we're able to go to the next process of dealing with our debt program that we're going to be unpacking. Thirdly, the most important thing that we're going to do is to give civil servants a working salary which is above poverty datum line. When we get into office, the first and most important thing is that teachers, police officers, soldiers, government bureaucrats, all civil servants must be able to get a salary above poverty datum line, and obviously that is $500 going upwards.
Any idea of the number? Okay, I don't want you to give me secrets, but any idea of the numbers?
Of course. And then,
you have the number that you think.
And then after that, we're obviously going to make sure that we also pass a clear, important program around education. In the first 100 days, one of our strategic focus is making sure that our people get free education, particularly primary education, because to build the big economy that we want to build, we must be focusing on these strategic areas like education, like health. The fourth thing, which is going to be health, we are going to make sure that Zimbabwe abides with the Abuja Declaration on Health, that 13% of the budget that we're going to unveil to our people must go to health.
Of course, there's obviously going to be discussion on how you fund that and so forth. I mean, that's why I say there's a lot of conversations that we're going to have.
The fifth thing we're going to do is obviously to make sure that we bring Zimbabwe back into the Community of Nations. One of the most important things, obviously, being rejoining the Commonwealth, among other international relations program that we're unveiling. So that is the macroeconomic framework. From there, obviously, we launch the macroeconomic framework, a big economy, and how we're going to be financing that economy. We're going to be unpacking that.
So you are in support of the current efforts to join the Commonwealth or to re-engage with the Commonwealth and join
Without a doubt, Zimbabwe must be able to go back into the Community of Nations. The difference between us and our competitors in ZANU-PF is how we want to do it, because there are conditionalities. One of it is obviously holding free and fair elections, the human rights situation in the country being resolved, and one of our most focused things, obviously, when we get into office is strengthening institutions of government. So we're going to have a big focus on separation of powers and making sure that the constitution becomes implemented to the letter and the spirit, because these are important in terms of how we relate, not just with the world, but also, of course, with our neighbors in SADC region, because to discuss and resolve the current issues, it will require us to converse with other fellow Africans. It will require us to converse with our neighbors in the region. So initiating that process will need us to have the set standards. There are SADC protocols, there are AU protocols, and of course the global standards. That
As I said, there is obviously going to be more chases here where we're going to get deeper in your manifestos, particularly when you launch them, in fact, all of you, because I think, as I said, today we can't really cover, but I'd like to do programming later on here on ZTM Prime, where we're looking at specific issues. And today I'm going to touch on a couple. I will mention that we did invite Tafazu Bugwadi. He is obviously Director of Communications at ZANU-PF, and unfortunately he was unable to make it. I understand that the Politburo meeting that he's at ran over, but however, we will be soliciting his views in future programming on some of the questions, of course, that we're asking the other parties here tonight. Gift, if I may, and I'd just like you to be a little bit brief. You did mention one issue, and I think, Tapio, I'd like you also to answer this, being of an economic background, and also you, Maddox. This is the question here about inflation and currency instability, because obviously, as you're aware, Zimbabwe has the highest inflation rate in the world. I mean, we can have, I don't want to get into a discussion about whether we should have blended or Zim dollar inflation, whether it's 200% or 87%, but also our currency, we have various currency rates, official rate, parallel market rate, money market rate, cash rate. I mean, I could keep on going. What do you see as if I had to give you just a brief comment and a brief right to this question, what would be your plans to settle the inflation and currency issue in Zimbabwe, if you could, overnight?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question. The first thing that we have to do is to restore the confidence in the banking sector, because a lot of Zimbabweans don't trust these brick and mortar buildings caused the bank, because of the role of the central bank and the role of the Minister of Finance in raiding people's nostro accounts. So the first thing we have to do is to restore confidence. Number two, the second thing we are going to do is to make sure that we ban and bring to an end the current auction system, because we lose almost $1 billion on the auction system. It's a system of arbitrage, it's a system of leakages in the economy, because it's for the benefit of the few. It is not even sufficient to answer the question, of current.
You're advocating for a free market.
The third thing,
is that a free market?
No, it's not a free market idea.
Okay.
It's abandoning of the auction system.
So what system would you replace it with?
No, which is the third area. We have to abandon the US dollar as the currency of change and bring the basket of multiple currency regime on the temporary measure. So for us, the basket of multiple currency regime is not a solution in the long term, but temporarily, because we have to deal with confidence, we have to deal with what can work. So we have to bring the US dollar, you have to bring
out
the
with the Zim dollar.
Multiple currency.
For temporary out Zim dollar.
That's what must happen. That's how we deal with the inflation.
No Zim dollar.
That's how we deal with the currency issue. Third thing is obviously dealing with the issues of the RBZ, because the central bank again is an important player in this process. And what we have seen, the inconsistency of pronouncement of statutory instrument is what we have to bring in, because when we have inconsistent policies, when you say one thing today and say the other, it's a problem of confidence to investors, to bankers, and so forth. So our four-tier system is going to be around the confidence issue, around the basket of multiple currency regime, and of course abandoning the auction system, and more importantly the RBZ, particularly in this policy.
I have to, unfortunately, Tapiwa, again, I'll give you just as much time to discuss what your party would do, particularly with regards to inflation and, of course, the currencies, which you did mention, of course, in your first 100 days earlier.
You see, Andy, inflation has been footloose because of demand supply growth. If you look at M3 or even M2, demand supply has been growing. It's just because these are RTGS deposits continue to fuel inflation and, of course, encourage speculation at the parallel market, because there's arbitrage. So you've got bad money on one hand chasing good money. So that's why I emphasize that we have to re-dollarize to deal away with this
similar to what CCC is putting as well.
They're saying to cure demand supply issues. Demand supply growth issues. Number two, inflation is a relationship. between production and, of course, the market. If we are not producing, there's no productivity in our economy, there's no way you can rein in inflation. So we have to ratchet up production. That's why I emphasize growth and macroeconomic stability.
About export, you're boosting exports.
Not only export, even domestic,
domestic
demand.
consumption,
Ratchet up production in the whole of the economy, so that when you produce, you anchor your inflation. That's very important. Then the third thing is speculation. A lot of speculative behavior in the market, which needs to be dealt with. Well, the gold coin tried to play that trick.
I think 31,866 gold coins have been sold, and now they're moving to digital tokens of gold coins. I believe the monetary policy statement came out today.
I should say it's a good vehicle.
It's an initiative, yeah.
It's a good vehicle. It's a good initiative. So we need to make sure that we deal away with speculation and rein in inflation. And but before we can put the policy matrix to deal with these things, we need to stabilize the currency. And we want a currency which is a store of value, which is a good medium of exchange.
What about this
at the present moment, and no one accepts the Zim dollar. Even if you go to buy tomatoes in the market, they'll ask you for $1, and so on and so forth.
70% of all transactions currently.
They've dollarized. So
what about this animal of the parallel market rate? I mean, unfortunately, we are in a position, I know that to get rid of everything,
the parallel market
change and
is because of
Arbitrage.
arbitrage. I've also rather addressed the issue of arbitrage. If you have a weaker currency vis-a-vis a strong currency, you have that arbitrage. So kill this weak currency
first. I suppose even the arbitrage between the official and parallel market rates.
And then finally, make sure that we build our reserves. To anchor the value of our currency.
I need to come in. Maddock, NTA's economic plan specifically to tackle inflation and, of course, the currency instability, if I can call it that, all the multiple exchange rates, free market and so forth. I mean, people call for opening up the foreign exchange markets. What is NTA looking at as a solution?
Yeah, okay. Firstly, probably we'll differ with the previous speakers in the pretext that we believe that there's nothing wrong with us maintaining the Zim dollar.
Okay.
You know, any country needs its own currency. What is lacking is the financial discipline with the RBZ. I agree with what my brother was saying, Gift, that as long as there's no financial discipline with the RBZ, for example, now if we talk about inflation, and we talk about the parallel market that you have been talking about. You go to where these money changers are. They've got new notes, and you wonder where someone can get so fresh notes that if you smell them, they're exactly straight from RBZ. So for as long as we have not dealt with the problem of financial discipline, then we have that problem.
Are you referring to money supply growth? Is that what you're talking about when you're talking about these? Because at the same time, I'm trying to understand your plan in terms of tackling.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But I'm saying whatever that is put in place, as long as there's no discipline, obviously it undermines whatever you will be putting in place. But of course, we're also talking about revamping the industries. That we need to have our industries working. If you look here in Harare, very few industries working. In Bulawayo, very few. In Mashingo, probably none. In Mutare, none. But if we have our industries revamped, it means that at least we are now starting to produce something. Once we start to produce something, then we also try and make sure that whatever we collect from our minerals, the gold, the diamonds, obviously, there needs to be discipline in terms of making sure that they are used in a manner that also then supports whatever currency that we have if we maintain the Zim dollar.
You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. Our discussion this evening, 2023 elections, our party selecting people's representatives. Now, I will say that we did invite Tafazi Mugwadi. He did say he would come. Unfortunately, he was held up and he did pass his apologies. However, we will be getting the views, of course, of ZANU PF on the questions that we asked tonight on The Chase, as we've put to our other guests here who represent political parties. Gift, And unfortunately, we're running out a bit of time, so I'll ask you to be a little bit brief on your answers. But Tapiwa did mention this earlier, of course, the power deficit. I mean, it's a huge deal, 1,700 to 2,100 megawatts required. We're probably producing around anywhere between 300 to 600 megawatts. Wangi 7 has just come online, Unit 7, which, of course, will add another 300 megawatts to the grid. But I suppose the question simply is, what the solutions does CCC offer to solve the energy crisis in the country? And I will ask you all to be brief, because I will ask you all of the same question.
No, thank you very much. What we propose as CCC to resolve the energy crisis is based on the following. Number one, we think that we must deal with production. And production is going to be in and around Wange 7 and 8. Number two, we are going to be focusing on building small hydroelectricity power stations, particularly in Manicaland, because of its landscape. We can generate, if we build something that generates 20 megawatts, we have about 40 of those. That's a lot of electricity. Number three, we're obviously going to be dealing with issues around, we think that we must regionalize the electricity crisis, but South Africa is grappling with the same. So we think that we must come together, not just as Zimbabweans, but with other players in the region, because we can come together and focus on building the Inga Dam project, because that dam can generate almost 40,000 megawatts of electricity. So that becomes the long-term plan. But after the issue, of course, the fourth thing is always in and around green energy. We've got the highest numbers of sunshine, so we must be able to have a solar. We've proposed that through our city council here in Harare, that the city council, if capacitated sufficiently in terms of its autonomy and independence, can be able to build solar farms that can supply electricity to Harare residents. After that, they can be able to sell the extra electricity that can generate to the national grid.
So that would also imply that you'd have to get off Wange 6, 7, and 8 because they're using fossil fuels, they're using coal. So at some point,
of course,
you'd have to shut them down.
Green energy is the future.
Okay. So that's the CCC's.
And then after that, we must be able to deal. So when we deal with generation, we must then move from generation to deal with, obviously, demand-side management, right? That's the biggest issue that we're going to be focusing on. You know what happens with some people not paying, whether it's because they're in government and so forth. So we must deal with issues of around demand-side management and how we're going to be industrializing in terms of, that fuel. Then thirdly, we're obviously going to have a focus on transmission. We lose a lot of electricity because of archaic cables. So we must deal with questions. So if we deal with generation, demand side management, transmission, that is the infrastructure question, is a key area that we're going to be focusing on. Because when we do that, it means that we're able to have all the electricity we generate going into where it's supposed to be, rather than being lost during
I'm
the
sorry, I do have to jump in
process.
there because we are running out of time and I'd like the other guests to speak. Tabio, I know you've talked about renewables. I mean, you even said it's part of our 100-day plan. So let's talk about to this.
We're not apologetic about the energy transition. We have to transition from fossil to clean energy. And in our plan, we intend to generate 500 megawatts through solar auction systems. Introducing the solar auction systems. I'll tell you how it works. We've got 10 provinces. We'll make sure that each province will have a solar auction system where bidders will come from various investors, domestic and foreign. They bid for supplying into the main grid, building a solar plant, a 50 megawatt solar plant in a province, supply that into the main grid at competitive tariffs. So that can be done through an auction system where you get the highest bidder who has got capital but be able to produce energy at an affordable tariff rate, which is negotiated by ZESA, the TDC, the main provider of electricity. So in each province, we are targeting a 50 megawatt plant in the 10 provinces to give us 500 megawatts into the system. Mini grids are also very important. We've got dams that we've constructed.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're basically saying let's move away from fossil fuel energy. We want to shift completely to renewable, whether it be solar, whether it be wind, whether it be hydro. You just move completely away
go to mini grids. We've got dams that have been constructed. Those dams they're not doing anything. Let's construct mini grids.
Okay. As I see,
it's
very clear that each of these topics I'm raising to my guests, we're going to have a whole chase on them because it's important.
500 megawatts
is what
fed into the off-grid. Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Madok, I give you a similar time. Is there any power crisis? Of course, the solution is important. It needs to be done. It's affecting everybody.
Yeah, yes, I think the issue of mini grids is something that has not been taken to its logical conclusion with the current government. I will agree with the previous speaker that if you look into just talking about Mashingo province only, there is Chokwe Mkosi, there is I think Lake Mutirigwi, which if actually used as mini grid, they can actually feed into the main grid. Then of course, like what the previous speakers were also suggesting, that little has been done to ensure that we utilize the solar energy. There is nothing. The only time that probably that such an initiative was done, it ended up actually in the wrong hands, and it ended up in courts and the like, the money looted and the like. But obviously, we need to utilize the solar system just as an addition to the current.
So you're also advocating renewables, moving
course,
to hydro and moving away from fossil fuels.
Yes, and also to look into the issue of the infrastructure. That definitely, we need to look into the infrastructure, even the existing grids at Kariba. If you look at most of the technical force there, they emanate from the fact that most of the equipment there is outdated. Probably this is the equipment probably set with the regimes before independence.
All right, so I'm going to start with you. This is my final question. You have each probably less than a minute to answer, so you have to be succinct and to the point. My final question to you all: which one thing would you pinpoint that you believe will be a game changer for your party in the harmonized national 2023 elections? Just one thing that you could pinpoint and say, that is what, if you voted for NCA, that is what our game changer would be. What would you say?
Yeah, I know that Zimbabweans are grappling with a bad constitution, like I've alluded to. If they vote for the NCA, they'll get another opportunity to write a good constitution where politicians has got nothing in terms of influencing what that kind of constitution should be. And that must be a plus in terms of coming up with laws that people can actually have ownership over.
Okay, all right. Tapiwa, it's an interesting question because it's...
In our situation, we need to rebuild the economy and, of course, rebuild the nation. People have to rally together as Zimbabweans. We've got one national flag, one national anthem. We are going to unite the people and build a new Zimbabwe.
That's your game changer as MDCT.
Yes.
Gift?
Of course, for us, it's the new Zimbabwe vision, because for the first time we present a document that answers qualitatively and quantitatively how a CCC government is going to change the concrete lives of ordinary people. And in this election, as I conclude, as you say, all these policies for us, the failure in the economy is because it is the politics stupid. So this election gives Zimbabwe a unique opportunity to change their economic realities by quantitatively and qualitatively changing the political. And the political is Advocate Nelson Chamisa and the CCC leadership. I thank you.
We have come to the end of the chase this evening. As I did say that we had invited Tafazo Mugwadi, ZANU-PF Director of Information. He was unable to make it, and we would like to, and we will pose exactly the same questions to ZANU-PF that we asked today to our other guests. You're watching our discussion this evening, 2023 elections. Our party selecting people's representative. I'd like to thank my guest here in studio, Tapiwa Masakada, of course, Treasurer General, MDCT, Secretary General, my apologies, Gift Ostalos Siziba, CCC Deputy Spokesperson, and Madok Chivasa, NCA Secretary General. Gentlemen, thank you so much for giving us a very good and worthwhile discussion here on The Chase this evening.
Thank you, Andy.
You're
welcome. Well, that's it for this evening. Of course, you're watching ZTM Prime here in Harare, Zimbabwe. I'm Andy Hodges. Have a good evening, good night, and please, you all be safe.